Aloha, guys. Dr. Thomas back. Okay, we're going to talk now about the nervous system. Okay, let me make a comment about the muscular system. There were about 3 slides left when the time ran out, and there were abbreviations, and then there's a couple of slides asking little quiz questions. And that's not enough to do another tape, guys, so just look over it. Keep in mind that some of those abbreviations are unusual and you wouldn't commonly see them, but that doesn't mean they won't ask about it on a test. So what does that mean? You need to be familiar with them. Okay, the nervous system. Extraordinarily complex system of the body. Okay, introduction. Let's see. Complex 10 billion nerve cells. Well, I need to correct that right off the bat. There are over 100 billion nerve cells just in the brain. 10 times more than this, so this is wrong. How do I know? Because I've been researching that kind of stuff. They always say there's as many nerve cells as there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Voluntary and involuntary function carries electrical messages, internal, external receptors. Okay, yeah. Terminology. Now we're jumping right in here. Guys, don't get this confused. The main portion of the brain, the big part, is called the cerebro. There is a smaller portion in the back of the brain called the cerebellum. It controls balance and some other things. It's easy to confuse these. There are membranes covering the brain, and one of them, the outermost, is called the dura mater, and that's what duro is. Encephalo just has to do with brain in general. Glial means glial cells. Now, it would be nice if they would define these things before they start throwing them out here, but neurons are functioning nerve cells, the ones that actually conduct the information. But there are a number of supporting structures called glial cells, and they nourish it and do some other functions. That's what this refers to. Lepto means thin or slender. Yeah, I can't think of an example right offhand. Okay, there are 3 membranes around the brain and spinal cord. They are called the meninges. And meningio, you've heard of meningitis. That's an infection of these meninges. Meningio or meningio are the root words for these meninges. Myo means muscle, we know that. Myelo means spinal cord or bone marrow. Why do you say, Dr. Trump, why? Why did they name it the same? Your guess is as good as mine. Very important, put a star by it. Neuro is a root word for nerve. Okay, again, they're just tossing this stuff out at us, but that's okay. Part of the brain stem is a structure called the pons, and ponto is the root word for that. Radiculum has to do with a nerve root. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves that exit the spinal cord and go out between the vertebrae, and that's what the nerve roots are. Part of the brain is called that's actually part of the diencephalon. I know that doesn't help it, but it's called the thalamus. The meninges, three layers, are collectively called the thecal sac. One of the big nerves that come out of the brain and run down most of the various organs is called the vagus nerve, vago. This is a pretty important one. Okay, let's see now. Combining form or suffix, okay. Algia means excessive sensitivity to pain. So neuralgia is someone that's having nerve pain. Or algesia. Okay, I'm sorry, here's algia. Causo means burning. It's called causalgia. So for example, you can have a pinched nerve in your neck and it might cause a burning sensation go down to your arm. That's called causalgia. Comato, like a coma, deep sleep. Aesthesia, feeling a nervous sensation. You can have paresthesia, which is unusual, or anesthesia, where you don't have any sensation at all because you've been put to sleep. Kinesia means movement, or kino. I know I'm hitting these kind of fast, guys. There's a lot of them, and we'll just do the best we can. Kinetic means movement. Kinetic energy means energy in motion. Lepsy means seizure, like epilepsy. Lexo, word or phrase, lexicon is like the words that you use. Paresis is slight paralysis. Paresis is slight. You can have partial paralysis, guys. Phasia has to do with speech. Speech is actually very complicated, and it's controlled by a number of areas in the brain. Plegia, let's see, what was that other one? Paresis is slight paralysis. Plegia is paralysis, like paraplegia or quadriplegia. Like if a person is paralyzed in all four limbs, that's quadriplegia. Praxis is action. Yeah, but I can't think of an example right now. Sthenia, strength. Yeah, okay. Syncope, to cut off. Taxo, order or coordination. Yeah, okay. I just don't have any comment. Nerve cells are neurons. Neurons are the functioning nerve cells. Microscopic, collected in the macroscopic nerves, carry electrical messages all over the body. Yeah, I can go with that. Okay, there's two parts to the nervous system. The central nervous system, which is the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system, which is everything else. So how do you remember that? The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. It's abbreviated CNS. That's acceptable to refer to it that way. The PNS, peripheral, is everything else. What is that? We're going to go into it later. Okay, now they've jumped into the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system, which is everything but the brain and the spinal cord, contains 12 pairs of cranial nerves, which do highly specialized things. They come out of the brain. And the spinal nerves, which come out of the spinal cord. I mentioned actually both of these. Spinal cord has 31 pair bilaterally on both sides. There are many sensory receptors throughout the body that receive sensation, like pressure and touch and pain and temperature. Very, very important things that send sensory information up to the brain from the body. Divisions of the CNS and the PNS. More detail in A and P. Okay. So what's the central nervous system? Again, brain, spinal cord. What's the peripheral? It's everything else. What is that everything? Well, there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. We briefly mentioned that. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay. Then there's autonomic nerves. Now, when I teach these classes live, I always say this. Autonomic means automatic. Autonomic means automatic. What does autonomic mean? It means automatic. It's the nerves that control digestion and all this other stuff, heart rate and blood pressure, and all that we don't have to think about. Within the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nerves crank you up and the parasympathetic bring you back down. Okay? Now, guys, I know they're hitting you with a lot of stuff here. You're going to go into a lot more detail in this in anatomy. Just try to get the terms down. Okay, a neuron is the functioning nerve cells of the body. They typically have three parts. They have the body of the cell. They say nucleus, but it's the cell itself. They have dendrites, which look like little tree branches that bring information into the cell. And then they have a long structure called an axon that transmits information away from the cell. Clusters of cell nuclei outside of the body are called ganglia, or outside of the cell. When they often these nerve cell bodies are in clusters, and they're called ganglia. Okay, now that's good. It gives a pretty good picture. So here is the cell body. Here are dendrites. Here's the axon. So this cell is connecting to the cell down here. Its axon is coming down and connecting to one of the dendrites of this one. There are gaps there called synapses. Here's a picture of this synapse right here. And then there's chemical messengers called neurotransmitters that continue that signal. Now, that's all I want to get into right now. Again, in A and P, you'll learn more. Bundles of axons are what we call nerves. What's commonly referred to as a nerve is a bundle of axons from many different neurons. Okay, now we said that neurons are the functioning nerve, And glial cells are like support. So if we were thinking about, like, say, the military, the neurons would be the combat soldiers, the infantrymen, like Dr. Tom once was. And the glial cells would be like the cooks and supply people and intelligence and mechanics and all that sort of thing. You got to have them too. So they may not be out there crawling in the mud dodging bullets, but they're keeping you in ammunition and so forth. Okay, glial cells maintain health of the nervous system. Do not transmit impulses. Okay, supporting cells. All those are good. Neurons, nerves, and glial. 4 types of glial cells: astrocytes, microglia, oligodendrocytes, and ependymal cells. Here's the drawing of them. There are billions of these in the brain and body too, guys. So not the 100 billion were just neurons in the brain, not counting the glial cells. All right, now I'm going to tell you a little trick here. Well, it's something that will make it easy. The major portions of the brain, the lobes of the brain, have the same names as the bones of the skull that cover over top of them. So once you've learned the bones of the skull, the frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital, hey man, dude, you've got the lobes of the brain learned too. More than why? Here's the frontal lobe, here's the parietal lobe, here's the temporal lobe, here's the occipital lobe. This is the cerebellum I told you about, balance and stuff. Now again, you'll learn more about this in A&P. Don't let this, blow your mind. Just remember it's the same names as the bones of the cranium. Okay, the cerebrum, which is what this is, largest section of the brain. The surface nerve cells are called the cerebral cortex, little thin layer. That's where the highest thought and creativity and that sort of thing takes place. Manages speech, vision, smell, movement, hearing, and thought. Yeah. And then there's the cerebellum. This part. Again, the terms are pretty close, so try not to let it get you mixed up here. Coordinates voluntary movements and maintains balance. Real important. Thalamus integrates and monitors impulses from the skin or pain. It's just part of the internal portion of the brain. Hypothalamus connects to the pituitary gland, is real important. Controls body temperature, sleep, appetite, sexual desire, and emotions. Pretty important stuff, would you agree? Regulates release of hormones from the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland, along with the hypothalamus, controls all the other glands. Monitors sympathetic, cranks you up. Parasympathetic, brings you back down. Nervous system. The brainstem, the lowest part of the brain, the one that turns into the spinal cord, controls all the basic functioning of the body. That's just called the brainstem. It's made of 3 structures: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata, which is often just called the medulla. Now, most students have heard that because they said it's in the, what's that film with the water boy? It's mentioned in there, and almost everybody says, oh yeah, I heard that in the water boy. So what are the 3 parts of the brainstem? Midbrain, pons, medulla. Here's a drawing of meninges, those membranes. Again, infection of them is what meningitis is. Covers the brain and the spinal cord. There are 3. The outermost, the thick one, is called the dura mater. The next one is called the arachnoid. And the little delicate internal one is called the pia mater. Here's the spinal cord. Here are the cerebral. The cerebrum actually is in 2 hemispheres that join together. That's why it's got this section coming down here. Here's the cerebellum bulging out on either side. Here's the midbrain. Here's the spinal cord going on down. So what are the 3 meninges? Going out to in, there are the dura mater, the arachnoid mater, and the pia mater. There are spaces between these, and that's what these other things are. Okay. Nerves have chemicals in those little gaps between other nerves. Sorry, guys. I hate it when that crap does that. Okay.